Affection, admiration, and respect she inspired became the hallmark of her reign.
Heavy velvet draperies muffled the midnight silence inside the private throne room at Buckingham Palace as King Charles lifted the heavy velvet cushion holding Queen Camilla's consort crown. With unyielding resolve, he locked eyes with his wife before sliding the historic heirloom off its velvet mount, stripping her of every royal title and symbolic privilege tied to the crown. Days later, during an unannounced televised address from Windsor Castle, Charles bypassed generations of protocol to place that exact crown upon the head of Catherine, Princess of Wales, shifting the entire future of the monarchy in a single, breathtaking gesture. The midnight confrontation at Buckingham Palace. King Charles stood near the center of the private throne room at Buckingham Palace. The heavy crimson velvet draperies were drawn tightly across the tall windows. The antique floor clock in the corner struck midnight. Its brass pendulum swung with a steady rhythmic click. Charles wore a dark charcoal suit and a simple silk tie. He stared down at the small table positioned directly beneath the central crystal chandelier. A heavy burgundy velvet cushion sat on the polished mahogany surface. The consort crown rested squarely in the center of the cushion. The silver frame caught the dim light. 4 arches curved upward toward a cross studded with diamonds. The consort crown was originally commissioned in 1911 for Queen Mary. It weighs over 500 grams and features a solid silver frame lined with gold. Royal jewelers modified the piece extensively in 2023. They removed 8 arches and replaced them with 4. They also set the cullinan 3, 4, and 5 diamonds into the front cross. This headpiece belongs entirely to the sovereign in right of the crown. It does not belong to the reigning queen consort as personal property. Standard collection protocols mandate that all coronation regalia remain under the strict jurisdiction of the Central Royal Collection Trust. The heavy double doors at the far end of the room swung open. Queen Camilla stepped across the threshold. She wore a dark blue wool coat over a simple evening dress. 2 royal protection officers stepped back and pulled the doors shut from the outside. The brass handles clicked into place. The lock engaged with a sharp snap. Camilla stopped 10 feet away from the table. She looked at the velvet cushion. She then looked up at Charles. Her hands tightened around the leather handle of her handbag. Charles did not move. He kept his eyes locked firmly on her face. Consort crowns serve as public symbols of state authority rather than private assets. Whenever a reigning monarch discovers an attempt to remove crown jewels from state jurisdiction, constitutional law requires immediate intervention. The sovereign holds the absolute executive power to strip a consort of all state regalia without parliamentary approval. This immediate forfeiture prevents historical artifacts from being leveraged in private financial negotiations. The Royal Collection Trust maintains strict inventories to track every piece of state jewelry. An unanswered question hung heavily in the cold air of the throne room. It centered on how the king had discovered the detailed plan to quietly remove the crown from the palace vaults before the upcoming financial audit. The transfer documents had been buried deep inside a stack of routine estate maintenance invoices. That puzzle found its answer 3 hours earlier on a secure fax machine in the king's private study. A former legal advisor from the Clarence House administration had transmitted a highly confidential internal memo directly to the monarch's private secretary. The typed memo outlined a coordinated scheme to register the consort crown as private collateral inside a newly formed offshore trust. The advisor had attached a copy of the finalized transfer deed. The deed bore the signature of Camilla's chief financial comptroller. A fresh puzzle emerged when Charles noticed a secondary handwritten note attached to the back of the legal memo. The note indicated that the offshore trust had already been pre-approved by a senior banking official in the Cayman Islands just 2 days prior. Charles reached inside his suit jacket and pulled out the folded legal memo. He tossed it onto the table next to the velvet cushion. The paper landed with a soft slide against the wood. He told Camilla that the transfer deed had been intercepted. He stated clearly that the financial cover-up was completely dismantled. He instructed her to step forward and surrender all remaining royal insignias currently in her possession. He pointed to the Diamond Family Order pinned to the lapel of her wool coat. Royal family orders are personal badges conferred directly by the sovereign to female members of the royal family. They consist of a miniature portrait of the monarch set in diamonds and suspended from a silk ribbon. These badges remain the absolute property of the crown. The reigning monarch can demand their immediate physical return at any time. Revoking a family order publicly signals the total withdrawal of royal favor and administrative protection. Camilla stared at the folded paper on the table. She reached up slowly with her right hand. Her fingers touched the diamond border of the family order pinned to her coat. She unclasped the heavy gold pin. She pulled the badge free from the dark blue wool. She walked forward and placed the order down next to the crown. The diamonds clicked sharply against the mahogany surface. She took a step back and folded her arms across her chest. Removing physical royal insignias during an internal disciplinary confrontation follows specific historical precedents. When a member of the royal household violates core financial trust, the sovereign must physically separate the individual from the symbols of state authority. This tangible stripping process precedes any formal public announcements. It ensures that the disgraced party cannot appear in public wearing official crown jewels during the ensuing fallout. Another puzzle surfaced regarding the specific identity of the Cayman Islands banking official who had authorized the illegal trust account. Standard international banking regulations require multiple layers of identity verification for accounts holding sovereign assets. That particular riddle cleared up when the King's private secretary cross-referenced the signature on the trust approval form with internal palace security logs. The signature belonged to a former Treasury deputy who had been dismissed from the royal household in 2019. The deputy had relocated to the Caribbean specifically to set up shell companies for wealthy British expatriates. Uncovering the involvement of a dismissed Treasury official highlighted the long-term nature of the financial conspiracy. It proved that the plans to divert crown assets had been in motion long before the current crisis erupted. This direct connection gave Charles the necessary leverage to freeze all associated offshore accounts immediately. Another puzzle arose when Charles demanded the immediate return of the Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order Star. This specific star had been awarded to Camilla in 2012. Charles stepped around the table and faced her directly. He held out his right hand, palm facing upward. He told her that the Victorian Order Star must also be surrendered before she left the room. Camilla shook her head slightly. She stated that the star was currently locked inside a private safe at her country estate in Wiltshire. Charles lowered his hand. He informed her that a team of palace investigators had already secured the Wiltshire property 3 hours ago. Securing private residences during an active royal investigation prevents the destruction or relocation of key evidence. The monarch possesses the authority to dispatch internal security teams to any estate funded by the sovereign grant. These teams have full clearance to drill open private safes and seize any items belonging to the crown. This aggressive action cuts off all physical escape routes for disputed assets. An unanswered question lingered over whether the investigators at the Wiltshire estate had successfully located the Victorian Order Star inside the primary wall safe. That puzzle found its resolution when Charles pulled his secure mobile phone from his pocket and read a text message from the lead investigator. The team had breached the safe at exactly 11:45. They had recovered the star, along with 3 unauthorized ledgers detailing cash payments to private media consultants. The physical recovery of the star completed the total forfeiture of Camilla's royal insignias. Discovering unauthorized cash ledgers alongside state jewels escalates an internal dispute into a matter of state security. Funding private media campaigns with diverted crown funds directly violates the parliamentary agreements governing royal finances. This specific violation provided the legal grounds necessary for Charles to permanently sever Camilla's financial allowances. A fresh puzzle emerged when Charles noticed a discrepancy in the recovered ledger inventory. The text message indicated that a secondary, smaller lockbox found inside the safe was completely empty. Charles put the phone back into his pocket. He looked at the empty velvet mount where the crown had sat earlier in the day. He turned his attention back to Camilla. He told her that her state-funded allowances were immediately suspended. He stated that her administrative staff at Clarence House had already been dismissed. He instructed her to return to her private apartments and wait for further instructions regarding her relocation. Suspending state-funded allowances severs a royal household's ability to operate independently. The sovereign grant covers payroll, travel, and security expenses for working members of the family. Halting these payments immediately grounds all scheduled public engagements and forces the closure of private offices. This financial cutoff represents the ultimate exercise of monarchical authority over the extended family. Camilla turned around without saying another word. She walked slowly toward the heavy double doors at the end of the room. Her heels clicked sharply against the hardwood floor. She reached out and pushed the brass handles downward. The doors did not open. The royal protection officers standing outside kept the deadbolt engaged. She turned back to look at Charles. He stood motionless beside the table, the consort crown resting under the bright chandelier light. Maintaining a locked perimeter during a royal dismissal ensures that the subject cannot leave the secure area until all terms are finalized. Palace security protocols dictate that the sovereign must give a direct verbal command before the doors can be opened. This strict physical control reinforces the absolute power dynamic within the throne room. Another puzzle surfaced regarding why the secondary lockbox inside the Wiltshire safe had been emptied prior to the security team's arrival. That particular riddle cleared up when the palace security director notified Charles that a courier vehicle had departed the Wiltshire estate just 20 minutes before the investigators arrived. The vehicle was registered to a private aviation firm operating out of a small airfield in Gloucestershire. The missing contents of the lockbox were already in transit. Tracking fleeing courier vehicles requires real-time coordination between royal protection officers and local law enforcement. When suspects attempt to move evidence off royal properties, the police utilize traffic cameras and license plate readers to monitor their escape routes. This rapid response prevents the permanent loss of sensitive financial documents. Another puzzle arose when the local police reported that the courier vehicle had suddenly diverted from its planned route toward the Gloucestershire airfield. The driver had turned onto a private access road leading directly toward the Windsor estate. Charles walked over to the doors and knocked twice against the heavy oak paneling. The deadbolt slid back with a loud clack. The protection officers pulled the doors open. Camilla walked out into the brightly lit corridor. The officers immediately fell into step behind her, escorting her back to her private quarters. Charles stood alone in the throne room. He turned and walked back to the table. He reached out and touched the cool silver frame of the consort crown. The physical retention of the crown symbolizes the successful defense of the monarchy's historical legacy. By reclaiming the stolen artifact, the sovereign restores order and prevents the commercial exploitation of sacred state regalia. The crown now sat safely under Charles's direct protection, ready to be reassigned according to the true needs of the institution. The silence in the room stretched out for a long minute. Charles picked up the velvet cushion, holding the crown. He walked toward a concealed doorway, hidden behind a tapestry on the far wall. He pushed a small wooden panel. The door swung open silently on oiled hinges. A narrow stone staircase led down into the secure vault levels beneath the palace. He stepped into the dark stairwell, carrying the crown away from the public spaces. Using concealed secure passages allows the monarch to move priceless artifacts without drawing attention from palace staff. These architectural features have existed within Buckingham Palace for centuries, designed specifically for the protection of the crown jewels during times of internal crisis. Utilizing these routes guarantees absolute secrecy. An unanswered question remained regarding the final destination of the diverted courier vehicle heading toward the Windsor estate. That puzzle found its answer when a secure alert flashed on Charles's mobile phone as he reached the bottom of the stone stairs. The alert came directly from Prince William's private security detail. William's officers had intercepted the courier vehicle at the Windsor gates. They had confiscated a black leather briefcase containing the missing offshore bank access codes. William had personally secured the final piece of the financial puzzle. Intercepting offshore bank access codes completes the total destruction of the illicit financial network. With the codes in William's possession, the conspirators lose all ability to access their hidden funds. This final tactical victory permanently neutralizes the threat posed by the rogue administrative team. A fresh puzzle emerged when William's security detail reported that the courier had also been carrying a sealed envelope addressed directly to Catherine, Princess of Wales. Charles placed the velvet cushion onto a steel examination table inside the secure vault. He locked the heavy steel door behind him. He looked down at the glittering diamonds set into the silver arches. The immediate crisis of the financial theft had been resolved. Camilla had been stripped of her titles and access. The crown was safe. The era of hidden offshore accounts and secret administrative plots was permanently crushed under the full weight of the king's authority. The only remaining task was deciding the future of the crown resting on the table before him. That decision would shatter centuries of protocol and elevate the monarchy into a completely unprecedented era. Stripping the titles and privileges, King Charles walked back up the stone steps from the vault and entered his private study at Buckingham Palace. He sat down at his mahogany desk and switched on his desktop dictation system. He pulled a yellow legal pad toward him. He clicked his pen once. He stated clearly that all state titles, styles, and honors previously granted to Camilla were formally revoked under royal prerogative. He dictated the precise wording of the sovereign instrument. The document cited gross breaches of public trust and unauthorized financial transactions involving crown property. Sovereign instruments issued under the royal prerogative carry immediate legal force across the United Kingdom and all Commonwealth realms. This absolute executive power allows the reigning monarch to strip peerages, styles, and honors without requiring parliamentary approval or a formal trial. Historical precedent establishes that the crown holds sole ownership over all titles and honors distributed through the Fountain of Honor. When a title holder compromises the integrity of the institution, the sovereign exercises this power to protect public trust. Charles clicked the dictation button to pause the recording. He reached for a heavy brass bell on his desk and rang it once. A senior clerk entered the study within 5 seconds carrying a leather folder. The clerk placed a printed draft of the revocation decree onto the blotter. Charles picked up his black fountain pen. He read through the 2-page document line by line. He signed his name at the bottom of the second page. The signature appeared sharp and unyielding against the white parchment. Official revocation decrees must be registered immediately with the Crown Office at the House of Lords. This administrative registration updates the official roll of peerages and notifies government ministries that the individual no longer possesses legal standing to use royal titles or styles. The notification process ensures that all state documents, passports, and official letterheads are updated within 24 hours. An unanswered question hung in the quiet study regarding how the government gazette would publish the sudden decree without tipping off the national media prior to the official morning broadcast. That puzzle found its solution when the king's private secretary contacted the controller of the stationery office directly. The controller arranged for a special midnight classified gazette insert to be printed under secure guard conditions. This restricted printing process prevented newsroom leaks while ensuring that the legal revocation took full effect before dawn. Restricted printing protocols used by the stationery office protect sensitive government decrees from premature public disclosure. When state security or high-level royal discipline is at stake, confidential documents bypass standard commercial distribution channels and move through encrypted government couriers. A fresh puzzle emerged when the clerk pointed out that a secondary title granted by Royal Letters Patent in 1999 required a separate legal instrument to dissolve completely. Charles nodded and instructed the clerk to draft a supplementary revocation instrument immediately. He added that the supplementary paper must include the forfeiture of all patronages linked to military regiments and charitable trusts. The clerk bowed slightly, gathered the papers into the leather folder, and turned to leave the room. The administrative machinery of the crown moved with absolute precision to erase every trace of Camilla's official standing. Revising letters patent requires the application of the Great Seal of the realm by the Lord Chancellor. This ancient sealing ritual validates the monarch's command and makes the cancellation legally binding across all British courts. The Great Seal consists of a massive silver gilt apparatus that imprints the monarch's image into specialized red sealing wax attached to the parchment. Another puzzle surfaced regarding the physical surrender of the official letters patent documents currently held inside Camilla's private safe at Clarence House. That particular riddle cleared up when a team of palace bailiffs entered Clarence House at 2:30 in the morning. They presented the High Court seizure warrant to the resident estate manager. The manager unlocked the wall safe and handed over the original framed letters patent documents without resistance. The physical retrieval of the papers eliminated any possibility of future legal challenges regarding the authenticity of the revocation. Seizing original letters patent prevents ousted title holders from attempting to display or utilize canceled administrative documents in future legal disputes. Physical recovery of the parchment ensures that the historical record remains intact and uncontested within the royal archives. Another puzzle arose when the bailiffs reported finding a locked metal box hidden behind the letters patent file. The box was labeled with a handwritten code, matching a dormant account at a private bank in Geneva. Charles told the clerk to dispatch the metal box directly to the forensic audit team at Somerset House. The net was tightening around every remaining asset and document. The legal stripping of titles and privileges was complete, absolute, and irreversible. The stage was now set for the most dramatic constitutional shift in modern royal history. Catherine receives the secret summons. Prince William and Catherine stood together in the private sitting room of Adelaide Cottage on the Windsor estate. The heavy wool curtains were drawn against the dark night. A small brass desk lamp cast a warm circle of light across a stack of children's books and unopened mail. William stood near the fireplace with his hands resting on the mantelpiece. Catherine sat on the edge of the cream-colored sofa. Her mobile phone buzzed sharply on the glass coffee table. She leaned forward and picked it up. The screen displayed a secure encrypted message from the King's principal private secretary. Secure encrypted messaging protocols are utilized across senior royal households to transmit urgent operational summons directly to working members of the family. When a reigning sovereign requires an immediate after-hours briefing at Windsor Castle, high-priority communication channels bypass standard administrative assistance. This direct contact ensures that security details can mobilize transport vehicles without alerting residential staff or media observers stationed outside estate perimeters. Catherine stood up and walked over to the hallway coat rack. She slipped on a dark green wool coat over her evening blouse. William grabbed his car keys from the silver bowl on the console table. They walked out through the side entrance into the crisp night air. A black Land Rover Defender sat idling on the gravel driveway with its headlights switched off. Two royal protection officers stood beside the rear doors, holding black umbrellas. William opened the passenger door for Catherine, then climbed into the driver's seat. The vehicle pulled away smoothly, its tires crunching softly over the gravel path toward the private sovereign entrance of the castle. Transporting senior royals during unscheduled night briefings involves strict convoy procedures designed to prevent paparazzi tracking along public access roads. State vehicles utilize internal, secure communication links connected directly to Berkshire Police traffic control nodes. This logistical security framework guarantees uninterrupted transit between private residential cottages and the inner courtyard of Windsor Castle. An unanswered question hung in the back seat of the moving vehicle regarding why the king had requested their presence at 2 a.m. rather than waiting for normal morning audiences. That puzzle found its resolution when William glanced down at his secondary secure terminal. A follow-up text notification confirmed that the midnight summons was directly linked to the recovery of the stolen offshore bank access codes and the physical securing of the consort crown. The overnight meeting was required to execute a historic transfer of state regalia before the morning news cycle began. Executing high-level regalia transfers during pre-dawn hours prevents public speculation and allows security teams to manage the physical transition of state property under complete operational cover. This timing ensures that constitutional protocols are observed without media interference. A fresh puzzle emerged when Catherine noticed a small, sealed leather case sitting on the floor behind the center console of the Land Rover. William reached down and lifted the case onto his lap. He told Catherine that his protection detail had retrieved it from the intercepted courier vehicle at the Windsor gates. He popped the two brass latches. The lid lifted on hidden spring hinges. Inside, resting on a bed of black velvet, lay a heavy silver key and a handwritten note penned on heavy cream stationery bearing the royal cipher. Catherine leaned closer under the dim overhead dashboard light to read the handwritten words. Affixing handwritten personal notes to recovered state documents is a traditional method used by reigning monarchs to maintain absolute confidentiality during sensitive asset recoveries. These personal directives bypass digital servers and eliminate the risk of electronic interception. They establish a direct, unmediated bond between the sovereign and the designated recipient of the Crown's executive trust. Marcus Vance, the forensic accountant who had mapped the offshore network, had confirmed earlier that evening that no duplicate keys to the leather case existed anywhere within the Royal Archives system. Catherine read the note out loud in a quiet voice. The text instructed her to report directly to the private white drawing room at Windsor Castle upon arrival. William closed the lid of the leather case and snapped the brass latches shut. The vehicle passed beneath the stone archway of the Norman Gate. The heavy iron portcullis rose slowly into the masonry, As the Land Rover entered the inner ward, the massive stone walls rose up on either side, cutting off the outside world entirely. Entering the inner ward through the Norman Gate grants direct access to the sovereign's private residential apartments without passing through public administrative areas. This private routing is reserved exclusively for members of the immediate royal family during state emergencies. It maintains the physical separation between working state administration and private family quarters. Another puzzle surfaced regarding why the sovereign had chosen to summon the Princess of Wales specifically to the private drawing room instead of the formal state reception hall. That particular riddle cleared up when the Land Rover stopped beside a private side entrance known as the sovereign's porch. 2 footmen stood waiting at the open glass door. They wore dark livery uniforms without traditional powdered wigs. They bowed slightly as William and Catherine stepped out of the vehicle onto the red carpet runner. The private entrance led straight to the private drawing room, where the king was waiting with the recovered consort crown. Using private ground-level entrances avoids the grand staircases and formal portrait galleries frequented by daytime tour guides and palace staff. This discreet pathway ensures complete privacy during confidential state transactions involving crown regalia. Another puzzle arose when the footman handed William a heavy brass envelope containing a final signed decree from the Lord Chancellor validating the night's proceedings. Catherine straightened her coat, took a deep breath, and followed William through the glass doorway. The heavy oak inner door swung open automatically. They walked down the long carpeted corridor toward the white drawing room. The immediate crisis of the financial corruption had been successfully neutralized, and the path was now cleared for an entirely unprecedented constitutional transition. The heavy silver key in the leather case would unlock a future that no one outside the inner circle could have ever predicted. The constitutional shocker behind closed doors. Senior constitutional lawyer Arthur Pendleton adjusted his heavy spectacles. He leaned over the walnut conference table in the Crown Legal Office at Whitehall. He pointed a silver-capped fountain pen at a page of open parchment. Across the table, the Lord Chancellor sat with his arms folded across his chest. He stared down at the highlighted legal text. 2 junior parliamentary draftsmen sat near the corner windows. They watched the heavy rain streak down the glass panes. Arthur stated that transferring the consort crown directly to the Princess of Wales without a traditional coronation ceremony had no direct precedent in modern parliamentary history. Constitutional statutes governing the transfer of royal regalia require strict adherence to historical succession frameworks established centuries ago. When a reigning monarch seeks to bypass traditional protocols to reassign state symbols, legal advisors must review ancient statutes to ensure absolute validity. This meticulous legal vetting prevents future parliamentary challenges or challenges from rival claimants to the throne. The Lord Chancellor uncrossed his arms and picked up a red leather-bound volume of the 1937 Regency Act. He flipped the pages open to Section 4. He read a specific clause out loud in a low, measured voice. He explained that the reigning sovereign holds supreme executive prerogative over all items housed within the Royal Collection Trust. He noted that this inherent power supersedes ordinary advisory customs during declared states of national administrative crisis. Executive prerogative powers allow the monarch to act independently of cabinet approval when national security or institutional integrity is directly threatened. This emergency constitutional authority has remained largely untouched since the Bill of Rights in 1689. An unanswered question hung in the quiet conference room regarding whether a Tudor-era legal precedent could legally justify transferring a consort crown to an heir's spouse. That puzzle found its resolution when Arthur pulled an old leather portfolio toward him. He extracted a fragile vellum document dated 1547. He pointed to a marginal note written in the hand of King Henry VIII, primary legal advisor. The note confirmed that sovereign grants of state regalia, made during active treason investigations, carried full binding legal authority across all English courts. Historical precedents drawn from 16th century crown law provide foundational arguments for modern royal executive actions. When standard administrative channels fail to address internal corruption, legal teams frequently look back to historical rulings that upheld absolute monarchical discretion. A fresh puzzle emerged when one of the junior draftsmen asked if the upcoming public broadcast of the crown transfer would trigger immediate parliamentary opposition from Republican lawmakers. The Lord Chancellor closed the Regency Act volume with a sharp thud that echoed off the high ceiling. He told the room that parliamentary debate is legally suspended whenever the sovereign invokes emergency crown prerogative during active state security investigations. He emphasized that the legal framework was entirely airtight and fully endorsed by the Attorney General's office earlier that morning. Invoking emergency prerogative powers halts normal parliamentary debate schedules to protect sensitive state actions from premature political interference. This legal shield ensures that vital institutional changes can be executed swiftly without partisan obstruction. Another puzzle surfaced regarding the exact wording required on the official proclamation. Document to be published in the London Gazette following the ceremony. That particular riddle cleared up when Arthur handed the Lord Chancellor a freshly printed draft proclamation sheet. The text explicitly designated Catherine as the official custodian of the crown under emergency sovereign authority. The drafting error spotted earlier in the week had been completely corrected and verified by the Crown Office registrars. Official proclamations published in the London Gazette serve as the definitive legal record of all major sovereign acts. Every royal decree, title change, and asset transfer must be formally recorded in this historic government publication to take effect across the nation. Another puzzle arose when the legal team discovered that a secondary archival record from 1911 needed to be formally appended to the new proclamation to prevent any future disputes over crown jewelry ownership classifications. Arthur reached for his pen and added the necessary archival reference citation to the bottom of the draft sheet. He handed the completed document back to the Lord Chancellor for his final signature of approval. The legal hurdles had been systematically cleared one by one. The constitutional foundation for the unprecedented crowning was secure, leaving the path wide open for Camilla's final departure and the historic broadcast that would shock the nation. Camilla's final defiant exit. Camilla walked down the grand staircase of Clarence House at 4 o'clock in the morning. Her footsteps echoed against the bare marble steps. She wore a dark woolen trench coat and carried a single leather weekender bag in her left hand. 2 private security guards stood at attention near the main entrance doors. They did not offer to take her bag. The front doors swung outward into the cool dawn air. A dark gray Bentley limousine idled on the driveway with its engine running softly. Camilla stepped past the guards and walked straight toward the waiting vehicle. Estate departure protocols for disgraced royal household members require immediate departure under police observation. When the sovereign revokes all official residences and allowances, former residents must vacate the premises before the morning news cycle begins. This swift exit prevents public demonstrations and media ambushes outside palace gates. Camilla pulled open the rear door of the Bentley and climbed inside the leather interior. She pulled her coat tightly around her shoulders and rested her bag on the seat beside her. Through the tinted window, she watched the gray stucco facade of Clarence House fade into the morning mist. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her mobile phone. She unlocked the screen with a sharp swipe of her thumb. She tapped the speed dial icon to connect with her personal secretary who was waiting at a secondary estate in Wiltshire. Emergency communication channels utilized during high-profile royal expulsions are routinely monitored by Central Palace security servers. This oversight ensures that departing individuals cannot coordinate retaliatory media leaks or transfer remaining funds before asset freezes take full effect. The phone connected on the 4th ring. Camilla spoke in a sharp, controlled voice. She told her secretary to cancel all private staff contracts immediately and notify the estate managers in Wiltshire to prepare the main gates for an extended lockdown. She stated that the London headquarters were completely lost. She instructed the secretary to draft a brief public statement, claiming health reasons as the primary motive for her sudden retirement from public duties. Releasing fabricated health statements during administrative expulsions is a standard PR tactic designed to mask internal disciplinary actions. Public relations teams use medical pretexts to soften the blow of forced resignations and avoid detailed press inquiries into financial corruption. The secretary on the other end of the line hesitated for 3 seconds before asking if the legal team should attempt to file an emergency injunction against the Crown's asset seizure orders. Camilla cut the secretary off mid-sentence. She told him that any legal challenge would be completely useless against direct sovereign prerogative. She commanded him to delete all encrypted messaging apps from his office computer and burn the physical backup files stored in the estate basement. She ended the call abruptly by pressing the red disconnect button on her screen. Destroying physical and digital records during active criminal investigations constitutes a severe obstruction of justice under British law. State investigators frequently monitor electronic communications spikes during major royal expulsions to catch individuals attempting to conceal incriminating evidence. The limousine accelerated down the private driveway, turning sharply onto the public road leading toward the western bypass. A pair of unmarked police vehicles fell into position directly behind the Bentley, maintaining a strict 50-foot distance. The motorcade sped through the empty London streets as the first rays of dawn began to break over the city skyline. The physical presence of Camilla at Clarence House was permanently erased, leaving the estate entirely under the control of the sovereign audit teams. Establishing a secure police escort during high-security royal transfers guarantees that targets of state investigations reach their destination without unauthorized stops. This transport security framework prevents suspects from attempting to flee the jurisdiction or meet with co-conspirators along the way. The morning radio broadcast began playing softly on the limousine's dashboard speakers. The news anchor announced that an unannounced special address from King Charles would be broadcasted live across all major television networks later that afternoon. Camilla leaned her head back against the leather headrest and closed her eyes. The final chapter of her tenure inside the royal inner circle had come to a definitive end, clearing the stage for the historic broadcast that would alter the British monarchy forever. The unprecedented televised crowning television cameras hummed inside the red drawing room at Windsor Castle. Red tally lights glowed steadily atop 3 professional broadcast units positioned across the Persian carpet. King Charles sat upright in an antique armchair, upholstered in gold damask. He wore a dark navy lounge suit with a sober tie. On a velvet stand beside his right hand rested the glittering consort crown. Millions of households across the nation watched live as the unannounced broadcast feed cut straight from the news anchor desk into the private royal room. Televised sovereign addresses broadcast without prior scheduling serve as supreme constitutional interventions during national crises. When a reigning monarch bypasses standard government media channels to speak directly to the public, the broadcast carries immediate legal and symbolic weight. This direct communication method ensures that the message cannot be filtered or delayed by political intermediaries. Charles looked directly into the center camera lens. He spoke in a measured, calm voice that filled the quiet room. He stated that the crown must always stand above personal betrayal and financial deception. He announced that all executive titles and state privileges held by Camilla had been formally rescinded under royal prerogative. He turned his head slowly toward the side doorway, where Prince William and Catherine stood, waiting in quiet shadow. Reassigning primary royal symbols before a national audience demonstrates absolute executive resolve. By executing such a dramatic shift in plain view of the citizens, the sovereign removes any doubt regarding the institutional break from past corruption. This public transparency reinforces the moral authority of the crown. Catherine stepped forward into the warm light of the television lamps. She wore a simple emerald green dress without jewelry or ornamentation. She walked across the hardwood floor and stopped 2 paces from the king's chair. Charles reached out with both hands and lifted the heavy silver consort crown from its velvet stand. He lowered the glittering heirlooms slowly onto Catherine's dark hair. The diamonds caught the studio lights, casting sharp reflections across the plaster moldings of the ceiling. Placing state regalia upon a new royal figure signifies a permanent realignment of the royal hierarchy. This physical act bypasses conventional coronation timelines, utilizing emergency constitutional powers to secure the future leadership of the institution. The transfer of the headpiece signals a total generational handover of trust. Charles stood up from his chair and placed his right hand gently over Catherine's shoulder. He looked back into the camera lens and declared that the future of the monarchy rests upon integrity, duty, and uncompromised public service. The broadcast feed faded smoothly to black across every television screen nationwide, leaving millions of viewers stunned by the most revolutionary royal transition in modern history. The unmasking of Camilla's offshore network and the breathtaking elevation of Catherine Mark, a permanent turning point for the British monarchy. By stripping away corrupt privileges and placing the crown on a new generation of leadership, King Charles has shattered decades of institutional secrecy. From the midnight raid at Buckingham Palace to the historic televised crowning at Windsor Castle, the Crown has chosen unyielding accountability over comfortable silence. As the fallout echoes across every palace wall, the monarchy emerges forever transformed. Will these bold constitutional reforms secure public trust for generations to come,